Final Fantasy VII Rebirth represents part 2 of a 3-part retelling of the original Final Fantasy VII game on PS1, and although the original did have a decent amount of minigames, some of which were omitted for Rebirth, such as snowboarding, Rebirth went all in with minigames.
Some minigames were awesome, some were tedious, and others were just downright awful, but one thing's for certain, there's something here for everyone. Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Heather, and today we want to rank the Rebirth minigames from worst to best, excluding compulsory main plot games like the Junon Parade, the Kart Ride, and the goddamn awful Kate Sith box throwing section, which sends a shiver down my spine just thinking about it.
Of course, due to the nature of this video, there will be some gameplay spoilers since we will have to show late game footage for some minigames introduced later on. This list contains 20 minigames, bet you didn't realise there were that many. So let's get straight to it.
Welcome to our Mughal Emporium.
Starting off the list is what I believe to be the most frustrating, and that's Mughal Mischief. My goodness, they really wanted to piss us all off with this one. This aptly named game of mischief has Cloud running around like a goddamn clown trying to round up a bunch of pesky, hostile Mughals. Grrr! It's basically like sheep herding if the sheep had bombs and set up environmental traps.
These Mughals don't want to be rounded up, and they will use a range of arsenal to impede you in your task, such as throwables, wind currents, and even banana skins to trip you up. It's fun at first, but there are several Mog stools in the game. Doing this multiple times with increasing difficulty can easily break your spirit. If you get hurt 3 times, which is almost inevitable, then you have to start all over again.
It's a massive pain in the backside that can turn very tedious, and sadly if you want to access the Mughal Emporium, you have to do this for every Mog stool you come across. Urgh! And Potter fans do remember to always say mischief managed upon completion for no reason.
You're a lifesaver, Kupo.
Run Wild is one of those optional yet compulsory minigames you can undertake to gain a companion card in Costa del Sol to progress, and sees Red running around the field trying to headbutt giant balls into their corresponding goals.
This minigame can seriously go and do one. It's just the worst. Stupid balls, stupid goals, stupid obstacles, stupid timer, and stupid Red with his prepubescent real voice. Ugh, I really miss the cool Red.
Guys, it's me! I'm back!
Anyways, as Craig touched upon, the aim of the game is to knock the giant balls into the correct goal whilst avoiding obstacles. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. These giant balls seem to defy the laws of physics. They don't go where you want them to due to being almost weightless and extremely fly away. The slightest bump can send them flying in the wrong direction, and the obstacles are just mean.
There's rising and falling barricades, posts to navigate around. It actually reminds me of that pointless olive rolling bug gym test in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where you literally have to roll a giant olive shaped ball around an obstacle course into the goal. The mechanic feels the same here, although Pokemon did it better since the olive ball you are pushing feels more in your control.
You can certainly see which specific games the developers have drawn influences from throughout the whole game. For example, following wildlife to points of interest is taken straight out of Ghost of Tsushima. Anyways, what makes Run Wild even worse is that you have to control Red 13, who moves around quite haphazardly at the best of times. So, moving forward, let's just forget this minigame exists.
"3D Brawler" is an extremely uninspired recreation of classic arcade fighting games. You engage in boxing match minigames at the Gold Saucer to test your reflexes in the most dull way imaginable. Although the first challenge hails the introduction of Dio, who is arguably the most amusing character in the game, 3D Brawler puts a real dampener on things.
Dio's lack of clothing and tight bulging pants, rivaled only by Bowie in the Labyrinth movie that brings out my inner British prude, makes every scene awkward. It made me question whether I was even old enough to be playing this game at 33, and I kept glancing over my shoulder to make sure nobody caught me at that particular moment, exclaiming, "What in God's name are you watching?"
You literally can't not look at it. Put it away, Dio. Put it away.
Lovely when they come up to you, you're like, oh, as soon as he turns round, it's like, oh!
Anyways, 3D Brawler is thankfully not a sumo wrestling match. The minigame consists of you just dodging left and right hooks. You do this until your opponent lets their guard down and you can land a punch. That's it. Each opponent has a different attack pattern, but once you learn the pattern it sounds pretty simple. Bide your time and then whack. It's basically just a quick time event minigame.
This is one of the few minigames that I genuinely believe just needs patching. It just feels so unresponsive and sluggish, and this can lead to easily mistiming your dodges. Super annoying.
Practice, eh? How prudent. Come on.
Now, let's talk about Gears and Gambits. I don't know if this game is actually terrible or not, because sadly when it was introduced quite late in the game, I was so sick and tired of minigames by that point. Because of this, I was completely unwilling to learn the intricacies of another new minigame, when I just wanted to explore the regions and finish the story.
Gears and Gambits is similar to Fort Condor in how you deploy units to defend and attack enemy bases, but rather than infiltrate enemy lines, you have to destroy the enemy at the centre. There's so many different builds and strategies, and feeling overwhelmed by minigames by this point, it is likely quite common.
I was simply uninterested. My eyes glazed over when I saw the player units screen, and I just noped out of it. As I understand it, Gears and Gambits is based on Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system that allows users to set certain conditions that your AI party members will follow in battle. Or so I've read. I've never played Final Fantasy XII, but if you hate it or struggle with Gambit mode, then you might have a hard time with this too.
I'm so pumped!
Next up is Crunch Off, which was introduced in the remake. This gym sit-up contest between Tifa and gym members is fine in Rebirth, but is a little bit tiresome and makes you say, ugh, do I have to? Which is basically the same way most people would react if asked to do real sit-ups.
To complete this minigame, players must press a sequence of buttons in order and in rhythm, whilst the rhythm gets progressively faster, with the goal of performing more sit-ups than your rival. It sounds simple enough, but the button sequence on screen fades away, and you are left to your own devices to keep up the rhythm and continue increasing the speed.
This is not as easy as it sounds. You really have to focus because one mistake and Tifa will completely stop what she's doing for a short period before resuming at the slower speed she started at, giving her opponent a few seconds of advantage. It's way too easy to lose the rhythm. I mean, have you ever tried to count the seconds in tandem with a ticking clock? If you continue counting when you look away from the clock, chances are you will accidentally speed up or slow down your counting and ultimately end up out of sync.
Craig speaks facts. This phenomenon is known as temporal illusion, which occurs when your brain perceives the passage of time as being different than it actually is based on your heart rate. It's true, look it up. That's why sometimes songs you are more than familiar with can sometimes feel faster or slower than you thought. Anyways, back to Crunch Off. It's not a bad minigame really, it's just one of those that you put on the back burner because it's quite boring.
Furthermore, the rewards just don't seem worth it. For example, the Champion Belt, which increases your HP by 10% and strength by 5%, this is something that can be achieved through alternate and easier means. 3 out of 10 for this one.
Continuing with the theme of tedium, there's always Desert Rush, which is basically a new and not so improved version of the Whack-A-Box minigame from the remake. Who knew smashing up boxes would be less therapeutic and more groan-inducing? That's because it's not as simple as smashing the boxes to gain points.
The aim of the game is to accumulate as many points as possible by destroying boxes as fast as possible during the incredibly stingy allotted time whilst navigating the environment. You have to unlock paths by locating corresponding metal boxes and turn gears to lift and lower platforms.
What makes it worse is that our sword suddenly becomes almost useless. We can take down huge beasts and smash mechanicals to smithereens with our sword, but when it comes to metal boxes you might as well be wielding a blunt butter knife. Annoyingly, the rewards you get for gaining high scores are actually pretty decent. Not much else to say about Desert Rush, except it's one that you have to do at least once for a quest. Glidey Chocoo. For the life of me, I cannot do this! The Chocobo gliding mechanic in Cosmo Canyon is pretty terrible. Also, can't all Chocobos glide? Why can't we just fly in this region? JRPGs have been implementing excellent flying mechanics for a long time. Trials of Mana, Ni no Kuni. For some reason, the more westernised JRPGs and RPGs always get the flying or gliding wrong. Anyways, I just can't get the hang of Glidey Chocoo, which makes traversing Cosmo Canyon and getting a half decent score on the minigame a nightmare for me.
Not only do you have to glide with awful controls, but you have to go through rings and aim for air balloon generated wind currents to hoist you upwards and keep up momentum. It's really not easy. It should really be called falling the Chocobo. We're going to give this mini game a 5 out of 10. If you are good at Chocobo gliding, then I can imagine this would be a really fun and cool mini game.
It's not terrible. When you add 2 points to my biased score due to being crap at it, I think 5 is fair.
Yeah, that should do it.
Hey, chicken, I got a nice red box loaf for you, full of treats and happiness. Come on, that's it. There we go, closer. You're going to Barbados. Book, book, book. Wait, no, you dumb, overly skittish chicken. I'm glad I eat you after all this. Not sure if the chicken box lore counts as a minigame since it's part of a side quest and you can't replay it to beat your score unless you do the post-game chapter select, but it definitely feels like one.
This is one of those moments in Final Fantasy that make you stop for a moment and think, why are we even doing this? Aren't there more pressing matters?
Can you spare a minute?
Not really.
Like flower picking with Aerith in the remake, The World is Ending. La-di-da-di-da! I wouldn't say that this minigame is as bad as the ones we've already mentioned, where frustration is a common theme, but it can feel very tedious since these chickens are easily distracted and, as Heather said, very skittish. Basically, you have to use the red box to lure the chickens back home, but they can't touch the box.
Look, but don't touch. I said don't touch.
Back to square one.
Next is a search and photograph minigame found in Costa del Sol, which is less fun optional minigame and more compulsory filler task minigame, disguised as a minigame. Catour Caper makes Tifa and Aerith run around Costa del Sol like muppets looking for drawings of Catours to photograph in exchange for a companion card.
This would be okay if Costa del Sol wasn't so big and there were less red herrings thrown in the mix. Also, the drawings are in such random places, but thankfully you can hear NPCs talking about them when they're close by. Even then their location isn't obvious.
There's one high up and out of sight on a rock, one on a rock on the ship dock and another on a small fire hydrant. Ugh! They took way too long to find, but at least I got my miles in on my wheelie, which is the perfect segue to our next entry.
Hey, segue.
Dad jokes for days. One of the best things about the Coral region is being able to get around Costa del Sol on a wheelie. It's a very fun novelty, but somehow Square Enix,
you fool!
whatever, potato, manages to suck the fun out of bloody everything in their games, those damn fun suckers.
Instead of just leaving us alone to accidentally crash into everything and everyone we see, whilst passively racking up our wheelie mileage, which would have been enough, they turn it into a monotonous fetch quest. You have to find and return loads of different coloured wheelies to their corresponding rental spaces. Really?
Even worse, as a reward, the quest giver offers us an extra companion card and they reject it. Why?
I know, right? I wanted to slap the girls for that. Ugh.
And now we have to scour the city for that final Catour drawing that is nowhere to be found. Wait, is that it? Nope, just another red herring. God damn it, screw you, Square!
Pieces. We got it all.
The GBike minigame at the Gold Saucer is a virtual reality simulation of riding a motorbike like the section in the remake. It's fun, once. Not sure why they went with the VR thing instead of having an actual track at the Gold Saucer, but whatever. It actually feels more fun without the stress of that overly competitive blonde-haired bike-obsessed freak in the mix.
Also, Cloud looked rather silly with a VR headset on. I did like the motorbike sequences in the remake, but I think it should have just stayed in the remake because Rebirth went mini-games crazy and some of them are much better than the G-Bike that we have all seen before.
Not much else to say about the G-Bike.
Moving on.
Yes.
Down with you.
The Musclehead Coliseum is basically a recreation of the combat challenges found in the remake. Some challenges vary in difficulty and others only allow specific characters.
It's not as challenging as the combat simulator, but if you enjoy the combat in this game, which I hope you do since it's quite combat heavy, then you will like the Musclehead Coliseum minigame that produce rewards that may be worth your time and effort.
We would rate this minigame a 5 out of 10 because it's not bad, it's just not as appealing as some of the other games featured in Rebirth. We engage in combat throughout the entire game, so it's just more of the same, unlike our next entry.
Reinforcements are here! We're saved!
Now, Fort Condor is probably the most divisive minigame in the whole game. It was featured in the original but wasn't exactly loved.
It took me a while to actually understand how to play it and win, and now that I do and can, I don't love it. It's okay, if you don't mind ripping your own hair out over how stacked against you it can often feel.
Basically, you have to strategically deploy members of your unit onto the battlefield with the aim of infiltrating enemy lines to destroy their strongholds, whilst defending your own against the opposing unit trying to accomplish the same thing.
It is an interesting game if you're into that kind of thing, but one aspect that ruins it all is the horrible time limit. If there was no time limit and it was just whoever destroys our strongholds first wins, then this minigame would be much better and less stressful. The ability to create custom units would also go a long way to improve the minigame.
Ever wanted to massacre hordes of Catours and their variants without the actual XP gains? No? Well, me neither. But now we can, because Kid G, I guess. Catour Crush is just like the previously mentioned Whack-A-Box from the remake, but instead of boxes, you whack variations of Catours for points.
And before we continue, can we all please stop calling the remake? It drives me nuts. It's just Part 1 Midgar. Anyways, with that PSA out of the way, Catour Crush is part of the Proto-Relic Hunt situated in the Corel region desert area in Chapter 8.
In order to obtain all the Proto-Relic pieces, you must raise a Catour statue gained from outside the corresponding modular reactor that will point the way towards a Catour-shaped rock. You can then gain entry to the modular reactor and participate in the Catour Crush minigame, because instead of just giving us the Proto-Relic pieces, Kid G of course wants to test us first.
Not sure how beating up Catours demonstrates to him our suitability to receive Proto-Relic pieces, but let's just go with it, I guess. It's actually quite fun and novel following the Catour statue that produces a guiding ray of light to follow, and when you get to the Catour rock, it's funny watching the characters be forced into Catour poses against their will. It's always funny putting Cloud in awkward situations.
I'm not doing anything.
Help us! Come on, Cloud. Ribbit?
Tifa!
I tried to warn you!
What could be more fun than hopping around as a frog? Well, how about playing Fall Guys as frogs? Even though Rebirth is filled with unpredictable whimsy, transforming into frogs was something I didn't expect.
After completing the Calling All Frogs side quest in Junon in Chapter 4, you gain access to the Jump Frog minigames that consist of Whirligig Whack and Ribbiting Rollers. Whirligig Whack entails staying on a circular platform for as long as possible while the platforms disappear and you have to jump over spinning beams.
Ribbiting Rollers is a similar principle in a different format. You have to navigate across 3 platforms moving at different speeds whilst avoiding wooden beams that will knock you off the platform. The reward for these games are always enfeeblement rings, which turns your character into a frog upon entering battle.
Not sure what the benefit of this is, but let's be honest, we're not here for the reward really. We're here to become one with the frogs and watch the chaos unfold just for fun. Ribbit.
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 Ribbit. Bud. Wiser.
Moving on.
Ribbit, ribbit.
Hey! Ribbit.
Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit.
And now we're getting to the mini-game's cream of the crop. To start us off is the Chocoo Racing minigame introduced at the Gold Saucer. The first taste of riding a chocobo for competitive sports is Hustle the Chocobo outside the Chocobo Ranch in the grasslands, which entails riding through goalposts.
This is a minigame in itself, but is nowhere near as enjoyable as the Chocobo races, which are frenzied Mario Kart inspired balloon popping contests. You can select which Chocobo you want to use and choose which stat affecting attire to outfit them with for each race, that unlocks as you progress in the game.
This does have a learning curve. You must drift around corners, like in Crash Team Racing, and pop different coloured balloons to boost certain power-ups. Red balloons charge up the ability gauge that allows activation of your chosen Chocobo's unique skill, which can be anything from firing projectiles to a massive speed boost. Yellow balloons increase the dash gauge, and blue balloons offer a passive boost to the Chocobo's overall speed. It's so much fun! Very aware that we've said Chocobo a lot in this.
Yeah, no, Chocobo has lost all meaning.
It's a word and my brain can't handle it.
Chocobo, 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 Chocobo. I'm keeping that in. People will be in the comments like, you should make a remix of Chocobo.
I know.
Okay, anyway, let's move on to our number 4 entry.
Space Rangers, your objective is to eliminate the enemy mothership. The fate of the universe is in your hands.
Next up is the Galactic Saviors minigame at the Gold Saucer, which is akin to a classic arcade space shooter on rails. The player takes control of a Star Cruiser spaceship and joins the Space Ranger army in their effort to defeat the Gilgamesh army.
You have to navigate through asteroids, shoot enemy ships, deploy proton bombs, engage in evasive maneuvers like barrel rolling and disabling components to defeat larger foes.
I loved Galactic Saviors, but there's not much else to say about it. It does what it says on the tin, I guess. Although it did make me wonder how on earth Square managed to create a flight mechanic and space combat system in a minigame that is far superior and more visually stunning than Bethesda's 20 years in the making Starfield.
Ooh, right for the jugular.
I know.
Oh, she's right though. Anyway, Galactic Saviors has excellent controls. Flying the ship feels very responsive instead of sluggish, the weapons feel impactful, and it's the right level of challenging.
Welcome, cadets, to Space Ranger HQ. Our mission today is a vital one.
If you like static screen shooters from a bygone era of gaming, then you will love Pirates Rampage, which for some reason I keep incorrectly calling Pirates Barrage. Anyway, this minigame is introduced in Costa del Sol as a means to attain Cloud's companion card.
Blast them in the next week.
The game is simple. You stand in front of a cardboard cutout looking backdrop of a ship and have to shoot the targets that appear to gain points. There are different levels where the goal might be slightly different, for example, your score being based on precision rather than total points.
Kinda reminds me of those shooting games you see at fairs and carnivals, where you shoot targets with a fake gun to gain prizes. It's a lot of fun, which explains its enduring popularity in gaming and the real world.
I can imagine that this minigame can become very addictive, similar to the minigames in Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC. If you know, you know.
As a musician myself, I appreciate a good nod to fellow musos with the inclusion of musical instruments in games. But Rebirth has done this so perfectly, and the possibilities are huge. Although there are set pieces to learn and master by following the notes in a similar style to Dance Mat and Guitar Hero, you also have free reign over the instrument.
This means that you can work with a full range of musical notes and keys to reproduce other musical compositions. I'm sure there are some fantastic Rebirth piano virtuosos out there who have recreated some incredible pieces.
The music in Final Fantasy is top tier, and giving us the ability to play some recognisable tracks is such a nice touch, and it makes you feel accomplished when you do it well. I have spent hours on the piano in Rebirth, and it was one of the reasons why the demo got me excited about the game's release. The idea that the musical notes and chords are triggered by angling the left and right sticks in the same direction as the note displayed is genius.
How it works is that the left analog stick controls chords and the right stick controls the melody, and this is represented by the musical notes and chords being arranged in two separate circles on screen, left and right. So you have to tilt the analog sticks in the correct direction in tandem with yellow lines that move from the centre of the circles to the corresponding chords and notes. It's not easy to explain or execute since you need to keep an eye on both circles, especially if you have little to no hand-eye coordination.
The only reason that this is not a 10 out of 10 is because it can be very hard. The offbeat melodies of Barrett's song and Hot de Chocobo are really difficult. I get better scores on those offbeat tracks by muting the sound because the beats put me off. In general, the best way to get the highest scores is to simply memorise the songs.
This is wrong. This is all wrong. I don't understand. It was just supposed to be a game.
And what else could be at number 1 than Queen's Blood? I am obsessed with this minigame. This card-based minigame really does grow on you, and although it's much simpler than Gwent, it rivals Gwent in how satisfying it is to win and gain new cards. At first, Queen's Blood might seem confusing, but once you understand the basics and how it works, you will get the Queen's Blood bug, I guarantee it. Try saying that fast 3 times drunk.
Not only is this game itself fun to play if you like that kind of thing, and considering the popularity of Gwent and how other games continue to try and mimic it, I'm going to assume you do, but it does come with a mysterious and eerie story.
I'm not going to explain how to play Queen's Blood in this video because I've previously uploaded a simple video guide that goes into details about the cards, the scoring system and how to win. So be sure to check that out after this video if you want to dominate all of your Queen's Blood challenges.
So there we have it. There's all of the minigames in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth ranked from worst to best. Let us know in the comments if there are any minigames that we have missed and which ones are your favourites. Personally, I like the minigames. It keeps the gameplay interesting and provides a diverse range of things to do. But I don't think that you should have to complete any of them in order to progress. We're looking at you, Costa del Sol.
I agree, and I also think that there were too many. The amount of minigames actually drained me. Oh, and quick side note before anyone gets smart in the comments section, I know it's pronounced Chocobo and not Chocobo, but I don't care. I'm common and it feels more natural to say Chocobo, plus it makes them sound chocolatey. Hang on, is it chocolatey? Chocobo? Chocolate? Wait, was my pronunciation right for once? Holy cow.
Wait, you mean to tell me we've been annoying people?
Yes.
Excellent. Anyway, let's see who watches this video to the end and makes fools of themselves in the comments. That's always fun. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We upload every Saturday and are currently working towards increasing our content output, so it's a great time to join the ever-expanding Amalgamingle army. I've been Craig.
And I've been Heather.
And thank you very much for watching.